All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's stream and day 3 of the Alexa Skills Summer Camp. Just going to do a quick tech check. I hope I'm audible and you can see me as well. All right, so I think that seems to be working fine. Glad to know you're all able to hear me properly. Let me just do a couple of quick check, folks. Hi Abhinav, hey Trade Last, welcome back. I can see Arjun, Venkatraman, Rishabh Anand is here. Hey Rishabh. Hema is here. Hi Hema. Sai Tejas is here. Bharani is here. Hey Bharani. Ved is also here. Harsh is here. Startup Sanatana is also here. Sanjula Mathur. Hey, welcome folks. Welcome to the stream. We'll just get started in a couple of minutes or so. I'm just setting up my computer properly, just making sure everything is working fine for the evening. All right. Anand Kumar is here as well. Anand is from the Alexa team as well. So Anand Kumar is here as well. Trade Last, quite a bit of people in here today. So excited for all of you to join us on the day 3 of Alexa Skills Summer Camp. Let me share a couple of links that I believe will help you all out. There we go. .design/India/invite, right? So that's day 1 video links and the day 2 video links as well. I just posted it in the chat, and we have the Slack link as well, which is alexa.design/India/invite. JB Nan is here. Hey Jeff, welcome to the stream. And Wally1234, hey Saravanan from Chennai. Awesome, a lot of you here today. Really glad to have all of you today online. And we'll be doing some really cool stuff today. Yes, Sagar, I will be sharing all these links on Slack as well, so don't worry about that. Let me just do a quick tech check here, folks. Right, I will be sharing the links for sure, so don't worry about it. All right, there we go. So let's get started. So like I mentioned, day 3 of the Skills Summer Camp. We had a few questions coming in from yesterday. So if you have a few questions, just feel free to drop the questions in the chat here, and feel free to say hi in the chat as well, so that we can just put a name to everyone here who is asking a question. So just put in a question. Just put in your questions here. We'll answer your questions for a couple of minutes or so, and then we'll get on how to go ahead. So Saite just asks a very good point, which is, hey, can we get any tips on becoming an Alexa student influencer? And I wanted to talk about this program that we are running, that's called the Alexa Student Influencer Program. Let me just open that up. Right, so this is an Alexa student, and this is a program that's only available for students in India. So you can go to this page and you can click on this link, and just let me just share for this as well. Yeah, Jeff Blankenberg is here. Jeff is streaming today at 7:30 p.m. IST. So do drop into his stream after today's stream ends. Yes, so coming back to Alexa Student Influencers, this is a program that connects like-minded students across India. And Alexa Student Influencers are young campus ambassadors and leaders who are passionate to learn new technologies in Alexa and share it among their peers, right? So any tips? I would say the very first tip is to be active in the Slack community and build a couple of skills, right? So that is like the basic, when you click on the apply form, I think that's couple of things that we ask for. If you have built some skills, and we see what kind of skills you have built, and if you have built some really good skills, then our team will call you up and there's interviews, and in the interviews we ask about your skill building knowledge. We don't go into like too deep as well, but it's not too lightweight as well. It's a decent technical interview, and we also look at how well connected you are in the college and what kind of events are you been doing, any events, groups that you are part of, and we take a call based on that respective. If you have any other ASIs in your college or in a nearby university, you can reach out to them and maybe ask them as well. Right. I think Manvi Grover asked, how do we prepare for the Alexa skill certification? Jeff has a really good answer to that. Build a few skills, build and publish a few skills, learn how ISP works, and learn Alexa presentation language as well, and then go for the exam. That's pretty much how it works, right? So I think you've got some good questions coming in there. Keep bringing in the questions. We'll share that. We'll answer it. Either I'll get to it, or people on the Slack channel will help you out with that. And now yesterday I saw a couple of questions coming in again and again, so I thought I would just talk about it. And before we get started, there are a couple of folks in the chat, Herman Viscuso and Andrea, and please say hi to Herman and Andrea, and they are from the Alexa team in the Europe. And I kind of made a small mistake while setting up this session today, and actually they had a session today at this time, but they were really helpful, and they let us take their slots. So thanks Herman and Andrea for this. Say hi to Herman and Andrea. Right, let's get started. So the couple of questions that we got yesterday was, how do I view the logs, right? So yesterday we wrote some logs. We wrote the logs in the code, kind of like a logging statement, console.log, if you remember. And we did not see how to check on those logs. That's something that we'll be answering today. So that is something that we'll be talking about. The second question is, a lot of people were asking, how do I test my skill on the device, right? Just like how I tested it on the device. So to test it on the device, you need to make sure that you are building the skill on the same account, as in the same email ID with which your device is also activated. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. Make sure both of those accounts are same. And some of you also kind of build the skill in the EN US locale instead of building it in the EN IN locale. If you built it in the EN US locale, then make sure your device is in the EN US locale, or then just try it out if your skill works or not. Some of you are trying to test the Hindi skill on the EN IN locale, and the Hindi skill does not work on the EN IN locale. It works on something called as the Hindi locale. So all you need to do is go to the settings option of your device, whatever device you have, maybe an Echo Dot or an Echo Show. Go to the settings option, and in the settings option you will see language, and we have 3 languages for India, which is English IN, then there is HI IN, and then there is a multilingual mode called as English/Hindi. So you can choose any of those 2 languages to check your Hindi skill as well. Right. Yeah. So that's pretty much the questions that we had. A couple of people asked how can we make it available to other users. That's something that we will learn on day 5 of this program. So check back in on Friday, and we'll teach you how to publish it to the skill store, and test it out with your other friends. Last but not the least, a lot of you asked that, hey, I tried opening my skill in the simulator, but it was not opening at all. What do I do, right? So there are a couple of reasons why this would be, why this would happen. And let me just open up my browser here. And can I check my skill on the Alexa app? Yes, I believe you can. Yeah, so let's get started. What we are going to do here today is go into the skill again. And a lot of you were asking how to, you were having issues. Just make sure that you are using the same invocation name as you have put in here. And once you change the invocation name here, make sure you are clicking on save model, and then you are building the model as well. Now, once you do all those things and then you go and test it, you have to say open riddle me today, or say something like ask riddle me today for a riddle, right? So that's what you need to do to open the skill. Now, sometimes what might happen is, once you're trying it a couple of times and maybe it's not working, just try, just delete the skill and try again. Sometimes that might be the issue. And if you are testing out in the Hindi version of the skill, right? So which is the Hindi version, in the Hindi version, this might be the invocation name, which is Aaj Ki Paheli. Whatever is your invocation name, make sure that it's pronounceable properly, right? That means you can pronounce it properly, otherwise Alexa kind of gets confused. So make sure you're not doing that. And then once you have kind of gotten the skill up and running, what you can do is you have to go to the simulator and say Aaj Ki Paheli Shuru Karo. That is the launch phrases. There are other launch phrases as well. But Aaj Ki Paheli Shuru Karo, Chalu Karo should work. So you can just try that out, right? And all of that is something that you can learn here on this invocation name requirements page, right? Just click on these links and you'll get more details about it. Yeah. And yes, and in almost 2.5 hours from now, we also have an office hours in Spanish with Herman and Software Chido from Mexico, right? So if you know Spanish, do hang around and attend that session as well. All right. So I think it's time now to get started with today. Okay. So I'll show you what we have done till yesterday, and I posted the code all in the Slack channel. So just go to the Slack channel and click in here and attend it. Click on the link here and look at the code. I think it should be somewhere here. Click on the pinned items and you will see I shared the code somewhere here. So you should be able to get that. Now, let's see what the skill does so far. Okay, so this is what we built yesterday. We built a skill called as Riddle Me Today, right? So, and we are just going to open it, right? So let me just, I'm going to unmute this so that
the less chances you take, the more points you win. All your points count towards our weekly leaderboard. Are you ready for today's riddle?
Right, so that is what we stopped at yesterday. And if I said, are you ready for yesterday's riddle? I say yes.
Here is the riddle for today.
Alexa says something like, here's the riddle for today. Okay, so we are going to do a couple of things here today. We are going to first ask the question, right? We are going to post the riddle to Alexa, and then and then what we are going to do is have that riddle be spoken out. Okay, so here's what we are going to do. Let's open up the code. This is my test simulator, and this is my build. Yeah. Okay, so this was the code yesterday. So let's proceed forward. So one of the things that we are going to do now is we are going to have some questions, right? And I asked you yesterday for some of those riddles, and some of you shared with me some of those riddles. And basically the idea was that if we had around 365 riddles or so in our skill every day of the year, or let's say 366 or 365, depending on whether it's a leap year or not. What we are going to do here is every day of the year we are going to take that skill, that day's riddle, and we are going to give it to the user, right? So that's what we are going to do here. So very simple skill idea. What we are going to do here is we'll come back to the skill data.js file. That's where we are going to start from. And let me just open this up. I'm going to do this in my coding editor so that you can see it. Yeah. So this is my skill data.js file. Let me open this up and let me paste it here. And I think there should be a wrap option here somewhere. Is this it, or is this the wrap option? Where is wrap option? Wow. Toggle word wrap. Where do you see toggle word wrap? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so this is toggle word wrap. Okay. Yeah, so I got that. Thanks for finding that out. What I'll do now is I'm going to create something as like a questions array. Okay, so this is the array where I'm going to have some questions in here, and those are the questions that we are going to ask the user. Okay, now some of you shared some questions yesterday, and I have them with me, but I don't have a lot of questions at this point, so I'm going to just copy paste whatever you folks shared with me yesterday. Let me see, where can I get that? I think I should have it somewhere here. Yeah. Okay, so these are the questions that I had for, right? Now keep in mind one thing, all of these questions are right now only in English IN, but yesterday we spoke a bit about localization, right? And what we saw is how you can have two different arrays, one for ENIN and one for HIIN. Now for the rest of this entire skill, I'm not going to be showing you how to add the same thing in here, but basically what you could do is just have the same array, same name, everything in here, have it pasted, and then just translate all of this to Hindi, right? Or put in a Hindi riddle here. I'm not going to go through that because we don't have much time in this, but you understand the concept here. You just need to have the same arrays, same name in here, and just need to update the value. Okay, so this is an array that I have, which is called as questions, right? And now these questions has only 4 riddles as of right now. I need around 365 riddles, and I'm not going to worry about having all of those right now, and that's something that I'm going to give you today as a homework. But yeah, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have some questions, and like I have 4 questions here, right? So the first question is, what has many keys but can't open a single lock, right? Anyone knows the answer to that? Let's see if you guys know the answers to that. Keyboard. Jeff says, yeah, keyboard is actually a right answer as well, but yeah, the answer that I was looking for is a piano. Yeah, keyboard is the right answer as well. So we have 4 questions here and we are just going to put in 4 answers, but the point is you can have as many questions as possible here and just have the proper answer. So this is a questions array. The first question is what has many keys, and the first answer in the answers array is going to be the same. So I just created a new array called as answers, and this value is the first question's answer. What can travel around the world while staying in the corner? Well, that is stamp, right? And these are just simple riddles. I'm not worried about at this point about the quality of the riddle. We can change it later on as well. The 8 of us go forth, not back. That is basically chess pawns. And what can you catch but never throw? The answer is a cold, right? Something not really that you don't want to catch right now. Okay, so here's what we have done. We've created 2 arrays, questions and answers, and we have we have put in the questions in here and the subsequent answers in here. So just make sure all of them are properly arranged, and my final plan is to kind of like have 365 questions in here and 365 answers in here, all answered in a proper way, right? And then we'll look through this, right? I know a lot of you are thinking of how we could make this better, and there are, of course, let me just tell you, this is not the best approach to do this. There might be different approaches as well. We can call in from a database, we can call in from an API, and a lot of things. But for the purpose of teaching here, I'm just going to keep it very simple. Okay, so that's something that I'm going to be doing here. Okay, so let's just copy this here and come back and update this here, right? So there seems to be no issue in here. Just having some tea. What do you guys what do you folks drink when you are coding? I like to drink tea usually, and water. But yeah, this we just save this. Let's just come back to the code. Okay, so what we are planning to do now is in the index.js option, right? What we'll be doing here is, let's come to the Riddle intent handler, and let's actually copy that code here and come back to it. Index.js, right? Andrea is in here as well, and I think it looks like it's not actually Andrea but a clone for Andrea. I mean, yeah. Hey Andrea, welcome to the stream. But yeah, coming back to this, let's come here. So here's what we were doing, right? The Riddle intent handler yesterday, we were talking about how the response was, here is the riddle for today. What we want to do here is we kind of want to ask the riddle from in here. Now my original plan is that calculate the day of the year it is, and then from here find that specific array index and kind of bring it in here. But because we don't have 365, I'm just going to go with a random question for the time being. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, let's create constant data is equal to, and we had this code that we can just call in here, right? And what this would do is get the localized questions, right? It would get the localized value, and then I would do something like constant speech output, which is going to be my actual output. I'm going to do speak output plus data, and of questions, right? Data of questions and the 0th element, right? That's what I'm going to do here. Okay, and that's what we will do here, and just make sure that it's working perfectly fine. Yeah, So that's something that we learned yesterday. The data of questions basically gets the localized version. So if it was the same thing in Hindi, it would get the 0th question from the questions array, right? So that's something that we are doing in here. So let's see what happens when we test this out. Okay, data of questions of 0, and okay, so I kind of missed a small point here. Let me just change this to speech output. Yeah, and copy that, coming back, command B, save it and deploy it. Yeah. Okay, so did we deploy that? Yeah, that got deployed. So let's test the skill now. Yeah, and I'm going to try this with the mic as well. Open Riddle Me today.
Sorry, मुझे ये नहीं पता.
And this is an issue that you might get because I just tried that skill in the Hindi version, whereas I was trying to open the English version. Let me just reload this and change this to the English version. Someone's asking if we get a certificate for this course. There is no certificate for this course, but we are running an incentive program. You can check it out at alexa.design/offers. Just learn this course and finish it, and then build a skill and get some really good engagement, and you'll get some really cool Amazon gift vouchers. Right, okay. Open Riddle Me today. That's the skill name, so I just opened it, and then so it says something like, hey, welcome to Riddle Me today. I'm going to ask you a riddle every day, so on and so forth. Are you ready? I would say yes. Right, did we unmute it? No. Why are we not getting the audio then?
Here is the riddle for today. What has many keys but can't open a single lock?
Right, so that seems to be working. Yeah, so speak. Here's the riddle for today. Let me just put in a full stop here so that we kind of have a pause in between them. But we got the question to come out, right? So we got Alexa to speak it out, and that question is coming out. Now, just remember one thing here. I've just put in data questions of 0. And here's the homework for all of you, and I'm just going to tag this as homework. Find the number of day, find the number of the current day. So like for example, if it is 4th of January, that's the 4th day in the year. If it is 31st of December, it's going to be 365 or 366, right? So find that number, and then from your questions array, so maybe you will need to add some more data in here, and then once you do that, pass in that value to here, right? The reason I'm not passing that right now is because I don't have that many array, and this is the easiest way to test that as well, but you need to do this as a homework. And something about these homeworks, let me just tell you, you can just post your solutions in the Slack group, and if you kind of get the right answer, I've got some cool gifts to give away as well. So just complete your homework and just post it in the Slack channel. The first homework for today is to find the number of the current day and get the corresponding question. I hope this is clear. Get the corresponding question, and I hope you guys find that out and post it in the Slack channel, and you have some, I'll have some cool gifts to give away to you as well. Okay, so now we are getting the question 0, right? Now what is going to happen is the user is going to look at this and they are going to tell the answer, right? The answer is going to be something like piano or whatever is the answer for any of these answers, right? Piano or stamp or pawns or cold. Okay, so we need to capture that as well. And like I mentioned, every time you want to capture the question, capture what the user says, you need to enable the reprompt method. So the reprompt method is what keeps the mic open, folks. We'll keep the reprompt method open so that the user can respond something and then you can capture it properly, right? So that's something. Now what I'm going to do in here is, let's come here and create a new message. We'll call this answer message, okay? And the answer message is going to be something like, do you know the answer for this? Yeah, so you're going to put in answer message, and then here let's create another reprompt variable. Reprompt is equal to data of questions, what was the name of the variable? Answer message, right? So data of answer underscore message, right? And we'll put this reprompt in this reprompt variable, right, inside the reprompt method, and once we put it inside the reprompt method, what's going to happen is the user can say something, and if Alexa did not understand it, it's going to say whatever is the answer message that we have passed, basically this line, do you know the answer for this? Okay, but otherwise it's just going to say something like, here's the riddle for today and here's the question, right? So maybe what you can do is you can just repeat the question here. So you can just put in here data questions of 0. So it will say the question and then have a pause and then ask, do you know the question, do you know the answer, right? As simple as that. That's all that we need to do with Riddle intent handler. Let's copy this. Let's come back here, go to the code option, I'll save this. Yes, Akhilesh, you can also get these answers up and running. You will also have some cool gifts for you all of you can. The gifts are open for all. Just finish the homework and post it in the Slack channel. Yeah, let's come back to the build option now. So we are done with this response here. Let's come to the build option here. And what we are going to do here is let's create a new intent, okay? And this is the intent that is going to capture all the answers for us, right? So I'm going to create an answer intent. Now, let's say you were asked this question. Here is the riddle for today. What has many keys but can't open a single lock? How are you going to give the answer to Alexa? What are you going to say? Can you all, you can just type it in the chat. Just type it in the chat. What do you think is going to be the response that you are going to give to Alexa? Right? Of course, you are going to say piano. Yes, that is one answer. What else? Answer is piano. Yes, Kaushal Prasad, that's a right one. We can ask for a hint. I think the answer is piano. Yes. People can also say I don't know. People can also say, is it piano? It's piano, maybe piano. The answer is piano. I think it's piano. So you can see how people are giving different answers. So you need to kind of train. So I can say something like, is it piano, right? But here's the problem. We have multiple answers, right? We don't have a single answer. We have piano, stamp, pawn, scold, and like as we have more and more values in here, it's going to get more complex, right? So this is not the right way to add an utterance here, because you can see what is going to be the issue here, right? We will soon end up with a lot of utterances and we cannot manage all of them. So we have something called as slots, right? And what slots do is, think of slots as something like variable. So you just assign a variable and that variable can have multiple values, okay? So what I'm going to do here is create a simple slot in here. called as answer. And the way to do that is by just typing in is it and then opening a curly braces, putting in answer there, and then closing it, right? So just putting that in. So is it answer is my answer. Now you can see that answer has kind of gotten highlighted now. Okay, now before I talk about this in a bit detail, let me add a couple of answers that someone said. So someone said the answer could be maybe answer. Kausal Prasad says piano lock kar diya jaye. Yes, maybe that's also something that can be working for the Hindi value. You can do that. Oh wait, sorry guys, I've been doing this in the wrong interaction model. I've been doing this in the Hindi model. Let me just switch back to the English model. And the reason why I'm doing that in here is because I don't have time to update both these models. But yeah, you can try this out at your own leisure. So is it answer, maybe answer, right? I think it's answer. Okay, so stuff like that, and maybe it could be just simple answer, right? People can just say piano. Now what we need to do is, once we create this slot answer, you will see that just below your intent you have answer option here. So I'm just going to click on this answer option here, and here I can choose a slot type, right? If I click on that slot type, you can see that there are some values by default. There is Amazon.actor, Amazon.airline. So that means, say for example, you are building a skill where you are asking the people to guess the actors, right? The Bollywood actors or Hollywood actors. Maybe it would be a good point to go and use the Amazon.actor slot type, because what's going to happen is that by default is a built-in slot type which has all the values of all the actors that ever existed, right? So all of that is in there, so you don't have to build that data type. This inbuilt slot type does it for you. But for us, we are not going to be using any of these built-in slot types because our requirement is a bit more custom. We have some custom questions and answers that we want to get detected. So what we are going to do here is, there's an option here called as slot types. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on the slot types, and I'm going to create a new slot type for myself, which is riddle answers. And in here, what I'm going to do here is do something like piano. Okay, I'm going to add a slot value. So piano is one of those. What else do we have? Stamp, pawns, cold, right? So those are the values that I've added. Okay, but people are not going to say piano all the time. People can say something like a piano, right? Or they can say the piano, right? Something like that. People could say the stamp. People could say chess pawns, right? So these are basically synonyms, right? So basically we tell Alexa that, hey, pawns means if someone says chess pawns, they are probably saying pawns, right? If people say the piano, they mean piano, right? So things like that, you can check it out. Let me just capitalize it because that's the way we've kind of kept it in here. Just going to do pawns and cool. Yeah, okay, so these are the values that I have added in here for the slot values. So now I'll come back to the answer slot here, and now I need to select a slot type, and when I click on this, I'll see this riddle answers right at the top because I just created my own slot type, right? So I'm just going to click on riddle answers, and that's it, I'm done. So now when someone says I think it's cold, what's going to happen is Alexa is going to understand that and put it to the answer intent, reroute it to the answer intent. Now this is really easy because we can just add different variations here, and we don't need to kind of manage all the synonyms here. We've just made a slot value out of it, slot type out of it, and we're just handling it out here. So I hope that was clear. So once we have made this intent, let's click on once we have made this intent and added the utterances, we'll just click on the save model option, we'll click on the build model option, and yeah, let's wait for the build to get completed. Okay. Yeah, I think there are a couple of questions here where okay, do you want to zoom me a bit? Okay, let me just zoom it in a bit. Yeah, I hope this is fine. And Vikrant asked, what about multiple answers to the same riddle? Vikrant, I'm keeping it very simple at this point. I don't want to bog this down by having multiple answers, and you will see once the code evolves, right, we can make it way better. Now let's come into the code. Now what happens is people come into the skill and they say, okay, I think it's piano. Okay, at this point they will say something like, I think it's piano, right? And we are going to capture that inside the answer intent handler and handle it properly. Okay, so let's do that. What we are going to do is come back to index.js, and now let's create another intent handler. So far we have created 3 intent handler. First was the launch request handler, then we created the riddle intent handler. Now we are going to create another intent handler, and I can just copy this intent handler here so that save time on this. Okay, right, I'm going to call this as the answer intent handler. Okay, and now what answer intent handler is going to do is it is going to respond to the answer intent. Where am I getting this name from? I'm getting this name from the answer intent here, right? So whatever is the name of your intent, that's what you will put in here in the intent name. Now out here we'll say something like, okay, in fact let's do something here. Okay, I've gotten your answer, right? So just for the time being, not worrying too much about what I'm doing here, let's just see if just calling that works or not, right? So I've added a new intent handler, and every time I add a new intent handler, always remember this, scroll down to the bottom and register your intent handler. Yeah, so this is answer intent handler in here. We'll just copy this and paste it here, and now once I've registered it, let's come back to the code and save it and deploy it. Okay, let's just wait for a minute. What if the answer is wrong? And we'll talk about this, Arjun, but I would look at having something like a fallback intent handler, and that is something that we won't be covering in this course. But yes, if the answer is wrong and it still hits the answer intent handler, we'll just make sure we are handling that properly, right? So I think the code should be deployed. Did we deploy the code? Yeah, the code is deployed. Let's just reload this, and now let's do something like open riddle me today.
Welcome to Riddle Me Today. I am going to ask you a riddle every day, and 3 chances to answer it correctly. The less chances you take, the more points you win. All your points count towards our weekly leaderboard. Are you ready for today's riddle?
So there's a dot in here, so let me just I think we just missed the dot in there, but we'll come back to that later. Yes, are you ready for today's riddle? Yes. So Alexa says, here is a riddle for today. What has many keys but can't open a single lock? I'll say something that I've added here. So maybe piano, right? So let's just try something like maybe piano. Yeah, right? So there we go. So that seems to be working. So once I say something like maybe piano, it's coming to this answer intent handler. So this is where I'm going to be writing some code to check if all my code, all my answers are correct or not. So let's go forward and let's do that. Okay, before that, let me just copy this JSON input from here that we just got, open it up, and out here let's look at the code, right? This JSON that we just got. And like I said, if you want to become a good developer, Alexa developer, look at the JSON, right? So in the JSON, you are going to get a request object. In there, you have an intent object, you have a name, you have slots, and then you have answer, and then you have the value, right? So now this value is what the user just said, right? So the user just said piano, right? So that's the value that Alexa heard and sent you the value. And then inside the resolutions field here, there is a resolutions object here. Inside there is a values object and what it resolved to, right? So we have a value here, sorry, we have a slot value here, right? The riddle answers, the value is piano. So it just resolved to this one, right? So we are just going to check if the answer that the user gave is same as this answer that we have here. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. But if you want to capture what the user said, you will always go inside the value option, and if you want to see which slot value it kind of relates to, you will get the value as well, which is here, right? The slot value name is piano, which is what we just added. But we need to add this, that's when it gets highlighted. If you don't add the slot value here, it won't get picked up by Alexa. Okay, now let's come back to index.js, and what we are going to do here is let's write some code here for handling the intent. Okay, so very first thing that we are going to do here is do something like get the local data. So let's quickly get the localized data in here. Okay, so we just have that value here. Again, it might seem like I'm reusing a lot of code. I'm not looking at the code best practices right now, just focusing on how to get this working. Okay, let's capture the user's answer, right? So the user's answer is something that we got in in this JSON here, right? And how we are going to get here is do something like handler input dot request envelope dot request dot intent dot slots. I hope I got it right. Request dot intent dot slots dot answer dot resolutions dot and kind of get the zeroth element of resolutions per authority, right? So something like answer dot resolutions per authority. I know this is a bit bigger and there's a better way to do this, but the reason why I'm doing this again is because I wanted to show you step by step up to how to get to that key name. You can always kind of have a helper function that kind of gets you all the values, but that's not something that I'm going to focus on right now. Values of 0 dot value dot name, right? Wow, that's pretty big. Let me just wrap it. Yeah, toggle word. Okay, so yeah, that's what we got. Resolutions per authority, 0 dot values of 0 dot value dot name. So this will give us the user's answer. Okay, now we need to get the question, like we need to get what is the question that was asked and what is the answer that the user to that question, right? So what we are going to do here is we are going to learn something called as session attributes. And what session attributes do is session attributes is this really cool functionality where when a user is interacting with your Alexa skill, inside the sessions we'll store some value which will be available throughout the entire session, right? And the session is right from the time the user says open a skill till the time the user exits the skill, right? So what we want is, most of the times the user is going to say, hey, open the skill. They come into this intent where they say, here is the riddle for today. And here, let's because we are getting the questions, which is data questions of 0, the 0th question, we are also going to save the correct answer for this question in the session variable, right? So we are going to create a session variable and we are going to save that answer inside the session variable. Okay, so this is how we are going to do it. We are going to create a new variable, right? Let me call it as data to save, and I'm going to call this as the right_answer option. And because we asked for data questions of 0, we are going to save the answer as data answers of 0, right? So skill data.js, the 0th question is what has many keys but can't open a single lock. The 0th answer is piano, right? So we are just going to make sure we are saving it in the session so that we can access it later on in the skill in the other session, right? So, and session persists between intents, right? It persists between a single session. Now, once we have set data to save, what we are going to do here is do something like handler input dot attributes manager, and yeah, I believe I got this right. I sometimes miss the spellings. Yeah, and attributes manager dot something called as a session attributes, right? And we'll send in data to save. Okay, did I catch that correctly? Yeah, so very simple. What is happening is whenever the user comes into the question intent, riddle intent, our skill asks them the question, but at the same time it will save that in the session value as well. So right answer is how we are saving it. Now once we have saved it here, what we are going to do here is we come into the answer intent handler where we have captured the user's answer. Now we need to check if the answer that the user gave is same as the answer that we have saved in the session, right? So that's what we are going to do now. Okay, so what we are going to do here is let's do something like constant correct answer is equal to I think we can do something like session attributes, but maybe we can do session attributes here. Attributes is equal to handler input dot attributes manager dot I think it's get session attributes. So always keep in mind these methods, right? This is set session attributes and this is get session attributes, right? So we are getting the session attributes, and let's save that in the session attributes dot what is the name of our session attribute? Right answer, right? So that is right_answer. Yeah, so that is the value. Okay, now what we'll do here is let's do something like if the correct answer is equal to the user answer, right? If the correct answer is equal to the user's answer, we are going to say something like, hey, your answer is correct, or else we are going to say something like, hey, your answer is wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to let speak output is equal to be blank. Okay, so I've just said let speak output is equal to blank for the time being. If the correct answer is correct, if the user's answer is same as the session answer, what we are going to do is do something like speak output is equal to correct answer, you get X points, right? We'll not worry about gamification right now. We'll be doing that in tomorrow's session. Else speak output is equal to wrong answer, you lose, you only have X chances remaining, right? So remember what we are doing here. We are building a skill where users come into the skill, the skill asks them a riddle. if they answer it on the first point, they are going to get 10 points, right? If they answer it on the first turn, they are going to get 10 points. If they answer it wrong, then they will have 2 more chances remaining. If they answer it on the second one, they are going to get 5 points. If they answer it on the last chance, they are going to get 3 points. Okay, so that's the way we are kind of going to structure this game. Okay, I hope that makes sense to all of you. Now, once we have that, what we are going to do here is we kind of need to say that, hey, this is a wrong answer, you only have 3 chances remaining. And ultimately, we are kind of going to build it in such a way so that users, when they open the skill and they have answered they have lost all their 3 chances for today, the skill is going to say something like, sorry, you've lost all the chances for today, better luck next time, and tell them the answer as well, because they've tried 3 times and they have not got the answer, right? So that's something that we are going to be thinking about how to build. Okay, so yeah, so that is what we will be doing here. Okay, so let's come back to this code. Correct answer is equal to user. So I hope everyone is clear right now what we did. We just saved the answer in here in the sessions, and then we are comparing them, and we also just learned how to capture the user's answer as well. Let's see if this works. I'm just going to copy it and paste it, and if you notice any issues with my code, do point it out. It is possible that I may have not written the code properly. Someone says missing a semicolon at the end. I'm not sure where I missed the semicolon, and I don't think that would, yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, this should not be a problem, but let's just put in there. Yeah. Okay, deployment successful. Let's test it out. Let's see if this is working fine or not. Let's come back to here. Open Riddle me today. Right, so are you ready for today's riddle? I'll say yes. So here's the riddle for today. What has many keys but can't open a single lock? Let's just say piano. Yay, we got the right answer, right? So that works. It says correct answer. You get X points. Yeah. Let's see what happens if instead of saying piano, I say something totally random. Okay. Let's see what happens in that case. Okay. Or give a different answer. Open riddle me today. Are you ready for today's riddle? Yes. But can't open a single lock. Let's say pawns, which was the answer for other one, right? Right, so that is working, that logic is working. So let me just quickly repeat what we did so that everyone understands what we did here. The very first thing that we did was we built a new intent, which was called as answer intent, and we added in different utterances, and we added a slot type called as answer. That slot type answer was here, and then we also created a slot type here, which is with the values of the answers that we got in our array, which was here, right? Sorry, where did we go? Which was here, right? Piano, stamp, pawns, cold. We added them to our slot values, we saved it, and then we built the model. Yeah, and then what we did was we created a new intent handler called as answer intent handler, and then what we did was we kind of called that answer intent handler, registered that answer intent handler here. And last but not the least, couple of things that we did here was we made sure that whenever the user comes into the question intent, the riddle intent rather, we are taking the specific answer that we are serving to the user and we are saving them to the session, right? And the way to do that is by doing handler input dot attributes manager dot set session attributes and then passing in the JSON. And now once you do that, it gets saved to the JSON. Then we were capturing that in the answer intent handler by doing something like handler inputs dot attributes manager dot get session attributes and saving it to the value to the variable called as correct answer. And we were also capturing the user's answer, and the way we are capturing the user's answer is by going to user answer is equal to handler input dot resolutions per authority dot values dot value dot name. At any point, if you are confused about what is the spelling mistakes, what are the spellings that are here, you can always look at your JSON, always look at your JSON and look at the JSON here and copy the value from there. You can just do that. And remember I talked about the session attributes. In fact, let me just copy this session that we just got right now. Let's see what happens in here. Right? So this was all the intent. But if you just scroll up at the very starting, you will see a session object here, and inside the session attributes you will see the right answer as well. So that's how we are getting this value here, right? We are saying handler input dot attributes manager dot get session attributes. We are basically calling this entire session and we are getting the attributes for them, right? And that's what we are comparing finally here. We are comparing if the correct answer is similar to the user answer, and then we are just saving them, right? So yeah, I hope everyone understood what we are doing here, right? Now once we have done this, I think it's time now to do a couple of other things. The very first thing that we want to do is, and we talked about this, is how do we build an engaging game skill, right? And the way to do that is by doing something like what we do here is basically we come in here and we say when people come into the skill for the first time, what's going to happen is they are going to say get a message which says something to the effect of, welcome to Riddle Me today, I'm going to ask you a riddle every day, and so on and so forth. But the next time they come into the skill, we want to make sure that we are not saying the same things again and again, right? Because the users will kind of get really bored of hearing the same thing again and again. So we want to kind of get directly to the point, right? So if someone is coming to the next to the skill to the next time, what we are going to do here is we want to make sure that we are getting directly to the question. So in the return in the skill data.js, and for this we are going to use database as well, persistence, and that's what we will learn. But yeah, that's what we are going to learn today. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes of a break because I've been speaking for too long now. Let me just stay hydrated. Again, just to confirm, just so that I can explain to you all, this is not like the best practices that we are following here. There are definitely way better practices that you can have, but this course is not about coding best practices. It's about getting started with building a simple skill, right? Yeah, now let's come in back here. So what we were talking about is kind of getting welcoming a returning user. So if someone comes back to the skill for the second time, how do we detect them and how do we make sure that we are answering them properly? So how I do that is kind of yeah, we are definitely extending the session today, Himanshu, don't worry about it. I think we can go on till next 30 or 45 minutes or so. After which I think at 8 o'clock is when Carlos from the Spain team will take over for his office hours. But yes, returning underscore users, and let's put in the value here. So the returning users message, let's just call it returning users welcome welcome back to Riddle Me Today, right? Okay, so that's the returning user's welcome. Yeah. And what we want to do here is kind of have some way of figuring out if a user is a return user or the first time user. Okay, and I'll explain to you how to do that. Okay, so here is where we are going to be using something called as persistence attribute. Okay, and what persistent attributes does is it lets you save data to a database table, right? Now if we were doing this through ask CLI, we would have been trying all of this in a Dynamo DB. We would be saving it into Dynamo DB database, but because we are doing it in hosted we don't have the same luxury of using a Dynamo DB database, although if you want you can do that in some ways, but we are not going to worry about that right now. Instead, what we are going to use is, once you come into your hosted, you'll see there's an option here called as S3, and S3 has this really cool S3 is a file storage system provided by AWS, and once you go in there, you kind of have a bucket for your entire skill, and you will see that every user that you are going to have, they will have a JSON file, and that is how we are going to store the data for the time being. Okay, every user is going to get their own JSON file, and whatever is the JSON that we need to save, whatever is the data that we are going to save for that specific user, that will be stored in the form of a JSON file, right? And the JSON file is going to be their account ID, or rather their user ID. Okay, let's come in here, download this. Okay, and let's see how that file looks like. Okay, so I just did that sometime before, just testing it out. Let's see how it looks like, right? So this is how it looks like, right? So it's a simple JSON where we have kind of had a variable called as first time, which is false, and chances are 2. Okay, so something like that. Now let's come into the code here. Okay, where did we miss that code? Or let's just close this. Yeah, so let's come into the code here. What we are going to do is, first of all, let's start adding a persistence adapter to our code. Okay, and to do that, what we need to do is go to the package.json file. We have a package.json file here, which is where we manage all our packages dependencies, right? Let me open this up here, package.json, and I think I might have this saved somewhere here. We need to add a package which is called as ask-sdk-s3-persistence-adapter, right? So that is the name of the adapter. So we need to add that adapter to the package.json file. And once you add it, I think, let me just copy paste. And once we add it, save it, and then finally deploy it, right? Can the answer come from a RSS feed or call out as Sharan Narayan? Yes, definitely. You can definitely call an API or any of those things, and all of that can show up here. You can just handle it properly. Right. Let's come back to index.js now. So we have added the ask SDK S3 persistence adapter. So once we have added that adapter, then what we need to do here is scroll down a bit here. In fact, before we do that, let's actually do something like call that variable here, like call that persistence adapter here. Do something like persistence adapter is equal to require ask SDK S3 dash persistence adapter, right? So this is my persistence adapter. I'm just requiring it here, and then once I require it, what I'm going to do here is I need to make sure I'm initializing that in my custom skill builder function. Okay, here I'm going to do something like with persistence adapter. So this is again a message, this is again a method that we have in skill builder. I'm going to the persistence adapter and just going to define the persistence adapter here. So new persistence adapter dot it's called SC persistence adapter, and define here bucket name, and the bucket name is going to be something called as S3 persistence bucket, which is created whenever you create the hosted skill. So this is available as an environment variable to you. So process dot, okay, let's come in here, process, that is irritating, process dot env dot s3 underscore persistence underscore bucket. Okay, so all we are doing at this point is we are defining the persistence adapter, and we are saying that, hey, save it to the S3 bucket, right? And which S3 bucket? Basically the S3 bucket that the hosted skill that just created for us, which is this one. So you don't need to give in the name. If you want, you can give it, but instead of that, we just said process.env.s3 persistence bucket, and it's coming from the environment variables that have been set when the skill was created. So you don't need to worry about it. Anyways, now that we have created it, what we are going to do here is let's try and use it within our code, right? So now what we are trying to do is every time someone comes into the skill, we want to mark as, hey, this user is a first time user, right? Or rather, this user is not a first time user. So what I would do is do something like save something to the database saying that, hey, this user is not a first time user. Okay, let's see how to do that. What I need to do here is do something like, let's use the persistence adapter. I'll say persistent attributes is equal to await handler input dot attributes manager dot get persistent attributes, right? Okay, so this is in fact, let me just name this as persistent attributes. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is name this as the persistent attributes, but I'm also using await here, and if you're not familiar with await and async, this is kind of a concept not really unique to Node, I would say, but still kind of unique, something that happens with Node.js, where basically it launches a process and just waits till because you are calling a database, we want to make sure until and unless that doesn't happen, we don't want to move to the next step, right? So because we are doing that as an await, just go here and mark this as an async handler, right? So every await needs to be, the function needs to be marked as an async. So I just marked it as an async, right? And then what we are going to do here is, once we have done this, I'm going to do something like, hey, if the persistent attributes, so what this will do is it will basically get this JSON file for that specific user. So for example, if there are 5 of these files here and you are user number 1, and whenever you go into the skill, it's going to get me the user number 1's persistent attribute JSON file, right? The data. So I'm going to do something like, if persistent attributes dot first underscore time is equal to undefined, rather is equal to undefined. Let's open this up and say something like data to save. So basically, if there is nothing called as a first time in the user's database, first of all, add something called as first underscore time and make it as false, because if the user has come till this point, that means that skill is the user is no more a fresh user. So at this point, what we will do here is save this to the database and then save it to the database, right? So what we will do here is do something like constant attributes manager is equal to handler input dot attributes manager. Again, we are going to be using this a lot, so we can wrap this inside a function, but for the time being, let me just show you how to save something to the database. Attributes manager dot set persistent attributes and data to save, right? And then last but not the least, do something like await attributes manager dot save persistent attributes. Okay, so here's what we are doing. We are first of all getting the persistent attributes, and then we are checking if the first time is there or not, if the user has a variable in their database called as first time. If it is not available, then we will create one, because the user is now no more a fresh user, and then we are setting it to persistent attributes, and then we are finally saving it. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. Okay, now once so whenever the user comes for the first time, they are going to go inside this function, and if they come back into the skill, they are going to go inside the else function here. So now what I'll do here is, let me just take this value from here, speak output, and because this is something that is going to happen the first time, what I'll do here is I'll put in here as speak output is equal to that question, which is basically welcome to Riddle me today, blah blah blah, right? The full stuff. But if they are not a first time user, what should happen? They should come in here, right? Because it's not defined so far. I'm going to save the, then here, instead of asking the question, what I'll do here is copy this returning users welcome. That is what I'll put in here, right? So if it's the first time, give the full welcome message, if it, and save to the database saying that this user is no more new, right? And then save it to the database. Then the second time the user comes in, it is now defined, the first time is defined, so they will directly come in here, the data returning users welcome, data question, and then they'll just speak it out, right? So let's see how that works so far. I just hope I've done this properly. Let me just quickly repeat the steps. I first of all added a S3 persistence adapter in the package.json file. Then I added the persistence adapter here, ask SDK S3 persistence adapter. I defined the persistence adapter in the skill builders function. Yeah. Third step, the fourth step, I'm just checking. So I made this async await call to get the user's persistent attributes, and then we are checking if the user is first time. If not, give them a, if the user is first time, show them a detailed message and then save it to the database using these three methods. If the user is not coming here for the first time, which is, in which case this would be undefined, right? All of this should be saved here. Okay. Okay, so now all of this is done. Let me just copy this code, come back here, go to index.js. Right, so there seems to be some error here. What seems to be the error? Speak output is constant, so let me just make that let. Yeah, so this is let speak output. Let me just change this here as well, so that when I share it with you, it's proper. Yeah, let speak output is equal to empty strings. Line 25 is missing a T. I'm not sure. Yeah. Hey, good catch. Who found it? Yeah, Himanshu 219. Good catch with that one. Yeah, that's a good catch. I hope we've saved everything properly so far. In fact, let's just test it out, right? Now, how do you check out your S3 console? You have to go to your, so inside your developer console, there's this option called as media storage. Let's click on this media storage. Let's open this up. And then once we open this up, it's going to go in here and then click here and here is where you would see all the JSON files getting created. This is mine. I'm just going to delete it. Let's delete it, right? Anyways, I think I've saved it. Let's test it out. Okay, now I'm going to say open riddle me today. So at this point it's going to say welcome to riddle me today. So that means we just entered this entire loop, right? Because there was no first time value for this user. That's why we kind of came in here. Okay, I think we can say yes, that's perfectly fine. We are not going to go ahead with this. That's fine. Okay, now let's come into the S3 management console that we had here and let's refresh this. You can see that there's a file now that has been created. Let's see what's inside this file. Let's open this file, download it. Now once we download it, I'm going to open this file in an editor. Any text editor is fine. So you can now see that we have a JSON file with the name first time false for this specific user. So now what's going to happen is the next time I'm going to come into the skill, okay, and I'm going to reload this now, right? What's going to happen is this user already has a first time false in their JSON database. So what's going to happen here is the code now. Let me just open that up. Don't save. Where did that file go? Okay, I think let me just open that code here itself. How does it select the correct? So that's something that the persistence adapter handles it for you. I think that was a question by Fred_chicken. So that's something that the adapter handles it for you. You don't need to worry about that. Let me just save it as it is. Okay, so now the next time when I open the skill, now the first time is defined. So it's not going to go inside this, but it's going to go inside this. Let's try that out. Okay, in fact we are back here. Let's say open riddle me today. Okay, right, so it's saying undefined, are you ready for today's riddle? So I think I missed something here. What did I miss? Data returning underscore users underscore welcome. Was that the name of the oh, I did not update my skill data.js. I think that's fine. Let me just update it. I'm going to come here, create a new variable here. Let's call it returning underscore users underscore welcome, and then we are going to do something like let's call it welcome back to riddle me today, right? Let's save this, deploy this, and I think that should work. Yeah, so I think now that that's saved, let's come back here and test it out. Okay, open riddle me today. So it says welcome back to riddle me today, are you ready for today's riddle? So there you can see what's happening here, right? So if the user is the first time user, it goes into this method and it gives the welcome to the skill, here is how you play the game. But if the user is new to the skill, if the user is returning user, they come into this option where they kind of do this, right? And we achieved all of this using database. Now a couple of things when you're testing this out, you might need, how do you kind of reset and check if it is working or not, right? So every time you want to reset this user, just go back to your S3 bucket, click on this and delete this file, right? So once you delete this file, this is going to just clear it out and our user is a new user again. So let me just try this out again. I'm going to say open riddle me today, right? So there we go. This is now treating me as a new user, and I can just reload this again and again, and you can see that now that file is created here. Yeah. And how do you open this? You have to go to your code option. There is this option called as media storage S3 0.0/5 GB. Just click on that and your S3 bucket opens up. And that's how you target, how you write something to the database and read something from the, write something to the database, and then kind of do something like, hey, if the persistence attribute is first time undefined, right? Okay. Let's just take a couple of minutes. We still got a bit of time, but I think I'll just talk about one more thing for today and then wrap it up. But yeah, that's how you would do it. Now, a couple of folks asked me, hey, how does console work? How does the logging function work? So if you see here, we have a function here where we say console.log data, but how do you check where the logs are going to be, right? So let's see how you can check the logs. So every time you run a function, console.log, right? There's this option here in the code tab, just behind this, just below this, there's this option called as logs, Amazon CloudWatch. Let's click on that. Right, and once you come into this log storage, this is CloudWatch, which is again an AWS offering which gives you all the logs. Go to the latest log. So there's this last event time option. You kind of can click on this and sort it out, but click on this. The last log was at 1916, which is 716, which was just a couple of minutes before we tried. You can click on this log, and once you click on this log, all your console.log statements show up here. So see, for example, I just said here console.log data. You can see the log, the data file entirely coming up here, right? So just log it here in the CloudWatch and just check it out. You have to click here, Himanshu, you have to click on this and you have to click on this logs option. Yeah, there's this option here on the left hand side. Not sure if you're able to see, but I'm moving my cursor here on the left hand side. Yeah, now just a couple of things before we wrap up for today, and I'm just going to give you a homework here as well. So the first homework that I gave you was how can we get the corresponding question by finding the number of current day. Okay, so next I'm going to teach you a small thing about how you can get how you can get the user's value, right? Basically kind of try and figure out what is in the database, and the way to do that is by doing something like this. So once you define the persistent attributes, what's going to happen here is you can do something like console.log persistent attributes dot first underscore time, right? Now this will give you the value of first underscore time, right? So let's actually check this out. Okay, let's save this, deploy it, come back to the skill, open Riddle me today. So are you ready for today's riddle, right? So I'm just coming back to the Lambda function, sorry, to the logs. Click on this and click on the latest log. Let's click on the latest log and see what's happening here. Can you see this false option, right? Because that is what is stored in the JSON file as well. So we just tried to do console.log of persistent attributes dot first time, right? So that is something that was saved into the database. So we got that by doing console.log. Now here's what I want you to do. Okay, I want you, let me open up this, right? Here's the homework for today. So now a user comes into answer intent handler. The correct answer is, if the answer is correct, that is correct answer is equal to user answer, right? What we need to do is, yes, this person has answered it correctly. So we are going to say that, hey, correct answer, you get X points. But if the user answered it wrong, what's going to happen is all of them get 3 chances at this, right? There are 3 chances at this. So they just got 1 chance wrong. Okay, they just got 1 chance wrong. So we need to save it to a database, right? And then the next time the user comes in, we will check, hey, how many chances does this user have? If the user has something like, say for example, they have 2 chances remaining, we will say that, hey, you have 2 chances remaining, try again. They'll try again, and if they've run out of their chances, we need to save that to the database. I have showed you how to save to the database. This is how you save to the database, these 3 lines of code. Okay, and how you read from the database. This is how you read from the database. What you need to do is create an experience which will look like this. The user says, open riddle me today. Alexa will welcome them, and user welcome them and give them the question, welcome plus question, right? So the user says something like, here's my answer, here's my wrong answer, right? So Alexa will say something like, uh-oh, you gave me the wrong answer, right? So the user said something like, the answer is piano instead of saying pawns, and you gave me the wrong answer. You have 2 chances remaining. Okay, now the user comes again, then you will say you have 1 chances remaining. Then the user comes again, you will say, sorry, you have run out of chances for today. Today's right answer was this, right? So that is the homework that you have to do today, right? So there are 2 homeworks. The first homework was very simple, I would say. Find the day of the year and serve the corresponding answer. Okay, and this is kind of easy. The second one is kind of complicated, but we kind of learned all those things here. We learned how to save to the database, and we also learned how to read from the database. So the second, this thing is, keep a note of how many chances the user has remaining, and if they have exceeded or are equal to 3, tell them no, tell them that they cannot answer today's riddle. So that is the homework for today, right? I hope that is clear to all of you, what you need to do here. Yes, you will be sharing the, I'll be sharing the code, Hitesh. Go to the Slack channel. I'll be sharing that entire link here in the Slack channel, right? So that is the homework that we have. Almost coming to the end of this session. Excuse me, guys, right? Just one last point. So this is what we have done so far. We learned today about how to do session attributes and how to save something to the database. Those are the 2 things that we learned today. Now I have some, tomorrow is going to be super cool. What we are going to do is we are going to integrate with something called as Game On SDK, right? Now Game On SDK is is an SDK by Amazon, where you kind of can run a tournament inside your skill. So basically like a weekly leaderboard or stuff like that. So we will see tomorrow how you can integrate leaderboard inside your skill. So basically at this point, remember how we have said something like, hey, correct answer, you get X points. How do we take these points that the user has just got and save it to Amazon Game On and kind of put them on a leaderboard. So now when we finally have 50 users and all of them are trying to answer the skill, trying to answer the riddles, they will get some points and we can then see who is leading the leaderboard. So that is something that we have, right? So that is something that we'll be doing tomorrow, and we'll be also seeing how to use some engaging voices in the game, right? How to use some audio files inside the game to make it even more interactive. So that's pretty much it for today. Here are the 2 homeworks that I want you to try out, and remember, if you kind of get this homework correct, I will be sending out some goodies to you. But yes, you will get some goodies if you kind of finish the homework, right? Special prizes if you kind of get both of these done together. Yeah. Post the answers in the Slack channel. You can ping it to me. You don't have to post it publicly. You can send it privately to me as well. And the Slack channel is alexa.design/India/Slack-invite. I hope that link is there. Alexa.design/India/Slack-invite. Right, so that's the Slack channel. Do join the Slack channel and post your answers and queries there. Shoaib Sheikh asks, what do you mean by finding the day of the year? What I mean by that is, remember how we had here, we are just sending the first question, right? But I want to kind of have a big array. Let me just bring that up. I want to kind of have this big array, which is this skill data.js, which has 365 questions, right? Right now it has only 4 questions. So I want 365 questions. And if someone opens up the skill on the 365th day, which is December 31st, they open it up, this value should be like, day of the year. Right now we don't have it, but I want you to figure out in the homework, how do you get the day of the year? And once you get the day of the year, you pass it on, and then all the users get that specific day's question, basically 365 or 366, depending on which year it is, right? And then that question is asked. So that is what you need to do, right? Just try and do that. That's the homework for today. I'll just hang around for a couple of minutes. Remember, Jeff Blankenberg and Jeff Nunn, both of them are going to be streaming today on their personal channels as well. So do go and give them a follow and see what they are up to, right? Any other questions? I'll be sharing the link to these code resources plus the homework and the videos, all of that on the Slack channel. So please join the Slack channel. Trade Last, yes, I'm excited as well for the Game On intro. Got it. So I think that's it pretty much for today, folks. Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today, day 3, and I hope you learned something cool from here. Tomorrow we are going to see how to integrate this with Game On and build a leaderboard into our skill and kind of use that and see how we can take it from there. And last day is when we are going to make this available to the public as well. So yes, everyone, thank you everyone for joining. Going to wrap up for today and see you all tomorrow, same time, 6 p.m. IST sharp on the same link, twitch.tv/Amazon Alexa. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.